Have you heard about Anchor? Well, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Not only is it 100% free, but it has a variety of creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or a computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast to other sites such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many others for you. And Anchor even allows you to make money from your podcast without a required minimum listenership. So whether you've been in the podcasting game for a long time or you're completely new to it, Anchor is so user-friendly that it's basically your one-stop shop for making a podcast. So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
You're listening to First Paso. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first paso. Hello and welcome to First Paso, a show where we learn together how to take that first paso toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and this past weekend I did the keynote speaking for the Kentucky Pharmacists Association, and it went amazing. I loved it so much. Thanks to everyone at KPHA who invited me, trusted me with that space, and for all the pharmacists and students, technicians that I connected with this weekend, thank you for sharing your stories with me. It was wonderful connecting with all of you. I'm really eager to jump into today's topic because it's kind of a topic that I alluded to during our mini-series the last 5 weeks. And it's a topic that I find myself bringing up to more and more people when I'm having deep conversations with them, and also when I'm assessing myself and trying to be more self-aware. And the topic is on your screaming inner toddler, okay? So for those of you that are parents out there, you may or may not have already gone through the stage of having a toddler. Now, even if you've babysat a toddler or have had a toddler younger sibling or something, you have been able to notice that toddlers can be some of the most manipulative creatures to ever crawl/walk the planet. Okay? These little spawns are so cute and darling and also frustrating, okay? Now, the thing about toddlers is that they are filled with emotion and expression a lot of the time. Obviously, personality differs. But a lot of toddlers can be much like teenagers. They have very broad emotions, very strong opinions, and they will get their point across and try to get what they want from the adult in the room. So let's set this scenario, okay? You have your toddler in the living room, you're in the kitchen, okay? And all of a sudden you hear like bloody murder screaming in the kitchen or from the kitchen in the living room, okay? Now, as a parent, babysitter, older sibling, whatever, the person in charge, you want to assess the situation. Is this one of your real cries? Is this an attention cry? If it's a real cry, we need to address the situation, remedy everything, make sure everything is okay. If we need to go to the hospital, let's try to go to the hospital, you know what I'm saying? But if it's one of those, you're just screaming to get something, whether it's a level of attention, an item, whatever, then you pretty much have two options. Well, let's say three. You have three options, okay? You can either, one, give in and give them whatever it is that they're screaming about. You can, 2, ignore it completely and just let them scream and fuss and kick and cry and all this stuff until they stop screaming and crying. Or 3, you can do a combination of both to acknowledge the fact that they're screaming, let them know that you've acknowledged that, and let them know that when they're ready to speak or address everything, they can come talk to you and you guys can process through what's actually happening and address the situation appropriately, but only when they have decided to calm down, which might still result in the screaming for a long time and kicking and all that stuff. But you're standing your ground in having given the instruction, letting them know they're going to choose what they're going to do, and you're going to act accordingly and continue doing what you were doing. Now, this is how I address emotions and thoughts with my coaching clients. Everyone has emotions, everyone has thoughts. And not every emotion and not every thought that passes through is good, and not every thought or emotion that passes through is bad. Sometimes our thoughts and our emotions make us think that something is good when it's bad and that something that's bad is good. Our emotions aren't always reliable. Sometimes our emotions and thoughts do provide us a level of insight that we need to address, and it's very helpful. Sometimes it's very protective. But emotions and thoughts are not something that we can plant our lives in. They're not that sustainable. And this might go in contrary to everything that you've probably ever heard about follow your heart and do what you love and follow your dreams and your body is your body and love is love and all these things. However, we have to be able to address the whys behind our thoughts and our emotions. And we also have to be able to be adults when our emotions and thoughts are being toddlers. So, here's the thing. When we address our emotions and our thoughts when they're screaming, it is crucial to pay attention to the intent. Sometimes we don't know the intent for why we have anxiety and fear and frustration and anger and all these intense emotions that are inside of us, or these racing thoughts that pass through our mind. And sometimes we're quick to say that, oh, because I feel this way, this must be right. Or because I think this way, this must be wrong. Sometimes it takes a little bit more digging. Sometimes it's not as surface level as we want to make it. There are things that if we do option 1, let's say we give in to whatever the toddler wants, we've addressed it. And because we've addressed it, the child has calmed down, right? Because the child has calmed down, sometimes we convince ourselves that that was the right thing to do. Perfect. They wanted a cookie. They screamed their head off. We gave them the cookie. They've stopped crying. Now, I'm not frustrated because I don't have to have my ears bleeding from their screaming. They're not bothering me anymore. This must have been a great decision. The issue with that is that that's a false sense of peace. That's a peace that required a sense of enabling. Enabling the toddler to do that again and again and again and again. And at this stage, it might seem innocent. It might seem totally fine. It might seem like the correct answer, the great choice. However, those things manifest differently as the child gets older. And you start to realize that you get into positions where the enabling has gotten to a space that it's hard to get them out of that space. You don't know how to revert back. And we see this all the time in society where parents have enabled their children. They've given them everything they ever screamed and asked for, thinking that this was just the good thing. And now they're teenagers or they're adults, and they're still doing that to their parents, and their parents are like, oh, but I love them, and things like that. And you're like, you realize they're taking advantage of you. And you're so emotionally attached to this person in this way. Not that you shouldn't be attached to and love your children. I'm not saying that. But you have this unhealthy bond with your child to where you don't even recognize that the peace that you have in just giving them what they want is because you've given them a sense of false security because you wanted to calm your own spirit. And that, in that regard, is technically being selfish and has nothing really to do with the child, but really has to do with you. And so this was something I processed about myself. I realized that there were areas of my life that gave me an intense amount of anxiety, like hardcore anxiety. Like I would be overwhelmed. I wouldn't be able to breathe. I couldn't figure out why I would have these basically panic attacks or anxiety attacks. And then I would give in to the thing that I'm freaking out about. So let's say I walk into a room of people and being in their presence makes me feel really small. I'm not breathing well. I don't want to do any eye contact. Everything in me says flee. Everything in me says, Candace, remove yourself from the situation. Just don't be here anymore. And then I would leave the room and I'd be like, ugh, I feel so much better. That was great. And so now I train myself to think that I can't be in certain rooms. I shouldn't be in certain rooms. Therefore, avoid those rooms. Or if you end up in those situations, flee, run away. When in reality, I would really just need to address that I have an insecurity here, and I need to work on my ability to be confident enough in myself to see that this is a safe space to relate with other people and not feel so intimidated by them just because they have certain titles or accolades and things like that. So there's that. Being able to assess ourselves and say, why did I feel this way? And why now do I believe that giving into the thing that it's saying it wants, simply because it calmed me down and gave me a sense of peace, doesn't necessarily mean that that's right. That's crazy, I know. But that's one area. Then there's that second area where you just ignore. Just let it scream, let it process, let it go. Let your body feel all the emotions, knowing that your body can't feel that way forever. Every anxiety attack does end up going away. Every panic attack does end up finishing out. Every racing thought does end up stopping at some point. There are breaks that the mind and the body take, or the mind and the spirit take in those moments. That sometimes is actually okay, especially if you recognize that this may or may not be something that you can handle addressing, that you would rather say, if I go and address this, it might actually become worse. I might get more emotional and frustrated. They will get more emotional and frustrated, and we cause a whole other scene. Let the inner child scream, do what it's doing. Let me be over here and try to collect myself and make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind to address it once it's tired. And when I'm in a clear mind and it's calmed down, I can then go back and say, okay, what was that about? Why was that there? Where did that stem from? Was that healthy or not healthy? Why or why not? And that is okay to do. I've done this multiple times where I'm in the process of feeling something and it feels very overwhelming. And sometimes I often just go straight into prayer and say, God, why am I feeling this way? What is this? I feel like I can't breathe. I don't know what's going on. And I pray myself through it. I'm like, Lord, I don't want to focus on it. I just want to keep asking you for peace, asking you for the calm, asking you for clarity. And then when I've calmed down, Lord, I ask that the Holy Spirit explain that to me. Show me why. Where is that coming from? Help me figure that out. Other people might do other things to try to, stay calm. They might do an activity or go for a walk or go exercise or watch a movie or something until that passes. Maybe distract yourself, stay busy. When that passes and you have the emotional, mental capacity to address what just happened there, then you can go and do that. And that's fine too. It just depends on what the situation is. And then there's that third space, right? That third space where you actually acknowledge, I am in the middle of having a panic attack. I am in the middle of having an anxiety attack. I'm in the middle of my thoughts racing on things that don't serve me. They're negative. I can acknowledge that these are negative. I can acknowledge that I think these thoughts or these feelings are real and true. And I can acknowledge the fact that they are strong. They are powerful in this moment. When those thoughts and emotions start to subside, I've acknowledged that they are there. I recognize that. When they've subsided, I'll go back and address them. But right now, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I am self-aware that this is happening. And you might even be able to take it a step further and recognize I am self-aware enough to know that when I stepped into this space, I started to feel this way, or I started to think this way, or when someone said this word, or when someone addressed this phrase, or when this color showed up, or when this scent hit my nose, whatever it is that's a trigger that you're like, I recognized in this moment that when this happened, that I started to feel this way, or I started to think this way, and now it's manifesting as that. So now when those thoughts and those emotions have kind of calmed down, you can go back and say, why was that trigger so powerful enough to shoot me into this space? And what do I do about that? The reason why I talk about the screaming toddler is because we go through so many things in life. We go through so much. The world is filled with ways to not only bless us, but also hurt us. And no one is immune to those experiences. No one is immune to being fed all sorts of messaging that is throughout the world from any angle and from any person. We're all subject to the goodness and the evil of the world. But we are also able to self-govern in a way that helps us find the roots of things. Not every child that is screaming is in danger, right? But also not every child that is at peace is doing okay. We have to assess the situation. We have to make sure that the child is safe, that they have what they need, that they are covered, that they know that they're loved, and that things are going to be okay as long as we address the truth of their situations in their world. And here's the thing about a toddler as well. A toddler is in their own space outside of that of the adult in the room. So they see things very differently than we do. They're processing their world differently. And so they're learning their boundaries. They're learning how far they can go in different aspects of their life to see what the reactions are of the people around them. And so being able to step back and really question certain things and to dig deep and find out where did that come from? Why is that there? That process, like I've said before, might mean having a life coach. It might mean having a mentor. It might mean having a therapist. It might mean having a psychiatrist, a counselor, a pastor, a teacher, a trusted friend, a trusted family member. It might require someone outside of you to go through that process of talking through those things and figuring those things out. But it's very important to find out why the inner screaming toddler cries. Why do they open their mouth in the first place? What triggered this child to think it needed to scream? And is there something that needs to be addressed, healed, redirected, something? Is there something that we need to look at to redirect the toddler to a space where it doesn't feel like it has to do that anymore? I say that as someone who started having moments of anxiety and panic in different areas of my life. And I used certain tools and means and workarounds to try to calm myself down, and I would feel better for a little bit until those things came back. And I got really frustrated with the cycle of, man, like this feels great. And this feels great for a day or a week or 6 months or even a year. And then something related to that somehow always came back, and I'd have to readdress it again. And I would find a way to try to basically quiet those emotions and thoughts. And it wasn't always healthy. Sometimes I thought it was absolutely healthy. I thought those things were totally fine. They're not hurting me or anyone else. Or if they're only hurting me, that's fine. I'd rather it only hurt me than also hurt someone else. And I would rationalize things, and I would try to process through my own things. And then I got to the space where I was like, look, I'm not doing this very well. I don't know how to deal with my inner toddler. I need help. So I started to become more open and transparent about those moments with trusted family, with trusted friends, and with God. It's what I did. And I continue to do those things because, again, I'm not perfect. I'm not some guru. I'm not Jesus Christ himself. I am learning and growing and evolving in who I am every single day. So that space of honesty, not just with myself, but with someone of accountability that could help me ask myself questions that I probably wouldn't have thought to ask, help me better want to learn more of where these spaces came from. And I was open to the redirection. For most people, I can't say I was open to the ideas and thoughts of different people depending on where I was at emotionally and mentally. But I knew that even when people said things to me that I was like, ugh, I hate that they said that, I don't really want to listen to it, I was listening, and it sometimes took me a while to credit what they shared from a space of love and concern for the things that I was going through. So all that to say, if you're dealing with moments where your inner child is screaming, those emotions are up and flared, or your thoughts have been racing, different aspects of your life are now questionable and you don't know what to do with them, and your emotions and your thoughts are trying to get your attention and convince you to do things without really taking the time to find out what's actually happening before we just assume that what they're screaming is the correct answer. Know that you're not alone. Know that you are absolutely and totally able to bring someone on this journey if you need to. If you're a Christian, I always say, make sure to let God lead. Make sure to ask him because he knows you better than you. And it's always great to ask God, show me. Explain me to myself. Because he can and he will if you genuinely want to know. And for those of you that are not believers, Jesus is always still a great option, but there's also counseling. And Christians, you can also do therapy and everything. Jesus and therapy do go together. But therapy, a mentor, a friend, a family member, someone that you trust to go through this space, absolutely fine. Not that you couldn't figure this out on your own, but it's always nice to find someone outside of you who might be able to ask you questions that you would have never thought to ask yourself about why your inner toddler is screaming so loud that it's raising up thoughts and emotions inside of you to figure out how to get it to shut up. I hope that's helpful. And if you have questions about this concept, please let me know. Shoot me DMs in social media or on my website at www.firstpaso.com. My social medias are all at Candace Olushala. But this is a interesting topic because of the world that we live in is very much lean into your own understanding, which as a Christian, I have a hard time with that, in that our own understanding is always flawed. It doesn't matter Christian or not. We're not always right. And I think we want to always be right, especially when it comes to our thoughts and emotions, because those are personal to us. But I think it's also wise to address every thought and feeling that passes through in the case that it's not good for us. It's not healthy for us. Address every sense of calm. Say, is that level of calm or peace in my spirit, is that a good calm? Is that a healthy calm? Or is that an enabling calm? Is that a calm that's feeding from a lie? Or is it a true calm that's actually healthy and purposeful and allows me to walk in my truest purpose and self? I hope that you get to address your inner toddler and let me know, have you done this before? Have you heard this concept before? And what have you done to try and figure out the truth behind why you're screaming? Where is that scream coming from? It couldn't possibly be just for that cookie that your toddler is screaming about. There must be something more. If you've gone through that process, I would love to know. And thank you for sharing your stories and your opinions and thoughts on various topics on this podcast. And I'm going to go and clean and go through the rest of my week, plan the rest of my week. But I hope you guys stay safe. God bless all of you. Love you guys. And we will talk soon. Bye.